Absolutely. So glad everybody's here. Welcome to the Connecting Juice. This show will live in infamy on my YouTube channel as well. So when we're done, it will be in the playlist on the Ginger Johnson YouTube channel. Janice Porter's our fabulous, fine guest. We don't have live music this time, so you get to hear me sing, or Larry's got the background in the back. So when you take a look at the tools you have, like if we think about the sheer volume of options on how we connect with other people, oof, there's so many ways. So if I say, Rob Hill, what's one way you connect with people? You'd say?
I would say LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Ashley, if I say, what's one way you connect with people different than LinkedIn, what would you say?
IAVM.
Okay,
Yeah, the International Association of Venue Managers.
Absolutely, an association, great. Agmar, what's one way you connect with people?
Checking in at work with my staff. Just every single time we start a shift, we do a check-in.
All right, conversation, right? Yeah, absolutely. Serena, what's one way you communicate and connect with people?
The local chambers and BNI.
Okay, great. There are so many modalities that we are so fortunate, and it can also feel overwhelming. So we're here today at the Juice to talk about one of the phenomenal global ways. Janice is laughing at me because she knows me well. Yeah, I'm pretty transparent. So when you think about a global way to connect with other people truly and meaningfully, LinkedIn is a pretty damn remarkable platform. Now, Janice and I are perfect testimony to that. That's how we met, right?
Yes.
And I'm so grateful for it. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago now, something like that.
I don't know, time flies so
Yeah,
fast.
Yes, it flies.
Probably yes. But we'll know we know when we look on LinkedIn, we can
Ooh,
see.
there you go. So Janice has a great podcast called Relationship Matters. Relationship rules.
Relationships rule.
Relationships. I'll get it right sooner or later. Relationships rule. And Janice, you can put that in the chat if you like. Okay. And she had me on in her first blush of podcasts. That was really fun. And I do recommend her podcast. I don't recommend them all. You probably all have podcasts you listen to. She brings on great guests who talk about what is relationship. And relationship marketing is Janice's forte. So first of all, Janice, please put some bookends on what does relationship marketing mean?
Well, for me, relationship marketing means building your business or growing your connection base through building relationships. You know, it's really about that know, like, and trust, which Serena would be very familiar with BNI, and bringing people into your world through conversation, whether it's through LinkedIn or through BNI or through organizations or whatever, but building relationships with people. It's just about that. It's about helping others. It's about being of service. It's about adding value to people in whatever way you can, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why she's here on the Juice today. You all know that I'm a human connection expert. I know that's one thing that I really appreciate about you, Janice, and our relationship is, first of all, if you're focused on the relationship, you give. There's your first nugget of the day. Like, you give first. The boomerang has to be thrown in order for it to come back. And we want to do that selectively. Now, that doesn't mean you're a snob. It means you're making choices because, like, face it, Agmar, like, there's a bunch of people that you're not interested in connecting with because they're not bad people. They're just not your people, or they won't, you might not have the best way to serve them, or they might not serve you. Is that true? Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, we got to be okay with that. This isn't the opposite of inclusion. I want to be really clear on that. You get to choose the relationships you develop and foster. Sandy, so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. And that's what relationships are. And Janice is so good at this because I remember early when we started talking, Janice, you told me my goal is take the online offline. Ooh, drop that. That's hot. Take the online offline. Tell us what you mean by that, Janice.
Well, as Rob mentioned earlier, you know, LinkedIn is a great tool for starting conversations and for meeting people. And I find that when I use it, first of all, if I'm doing the outreach, I'm doing it strategically where I'm searching for the kind of people based on whatever criteria I'm looking for. So whether it's by location or by industry or whatever. And then as I start to look at those people, I work a lot on intuition and instinct of who looks like the person I want to reach out to, first of all. And then I go through some checkpoints to see if they're even, going to notice if I reach out to them. But then when I do, I've done a little bit of homework just by being on their profile to see, I forgot the question now. See, I get carried away.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing great. How do you take the online offline?
So we start the conversation on LinkedIn, but we always, we don't start it until they agree to connect, first of all. That's really important because a lot of people just connect by pressing the button. Other people will say, will you connect? And they do, but they put too much information in there ahead of time that people don't read because they just accept it. And then, so I say, make the connection, then start the conversation with the thank you message. And that's when your conversation starts. And depending on how open people are, is when you would move it offline. So what I mean by moving it offline is, I'd love to find out more about what you do and how I can best support you. Would you be open to a Zoom call or phone call or whatever? But you have to give them some insight first as to that you're paying attention. Like you don't just say, oh, I'd like to get to know more about you when you've already you can know a lot by looking at their profile.
Right. So when you say, this is so good, and put all your questions in the chat, because even if we don't get to all of them today, Janice will follow up and we'll get the answers to all of it. And let it rain, people. Here's the LinkedIn expert, go. Because Janice is Janice, you know how much I appreciate, well, I hope you know how much I appreciate you. And she's such a great friend. She's a real giver. We both threw the boomerangs at the same time. So they're flying back across the borders. So when you say, I want to get to know more about you and I want to know how to support you. Now, we want to be really careful with the words so it doesn't feel like it's pushy or that it's an immediate, I want your money sale. Serena, you're nodding your head. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? We've been flooded with a lot of those. Hey, here's my thing. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about the words you choose when you're inviting and in those first stages of engagement on LinkedIn, Janice.
Well, that's funny because number one, as you said, there are a lot of people that are just pitching these days very quickly. And number two, if you, as I think I just said this, that this is really key, is that don't say, how may I support you? Or how may I help you? I'd like to get to know you, without referencing something from their profile. Because mind you, some people don't have a fully optimized profile. So you have to dig or take a chance, but it might just be a conversation that says, I see that you're in Washington, D.C. I have never been there. What's the best time of year there? Just ask them a random question, but it shows that I paid attention that you're from Washington, D.C. As little as that can make a difference, right? I have a story about a fellow that I met through networking online. And then he reached out to me to be on his podcast. And we didn't talk that much before the podcast interview, but when we got to the podcast interview, he started by asking me about my affiliation with a provincial basketball organization here in British Columbia in Canada, where I live. And the reason he did, number one, it was a very small thing on my profile, but the reason he did is because sports, he used to be a sports broadcaster on radio, and that was his thing, and basketball was his favorite sport. So he used that as a quick rapport builder. And that's, I think, the key, is find those little things that people don't pay attention to and use those as a conversation starter, because wow, that shows you looked at my profile.
Oh, so good. Who's doing that already? Who scans the profile before you invite to note something?
Try to.
Yeah,
Try to make it
absolutely.
an effort.
Great. Yeah. do it more. I was doing some of that yesterday. I belong to ORA, which is the Oregon Resource Association, and which I think Serena, your Family Solutions is a member of, right? It's an association I'm a member of. I just taught this morning with them, and I have their directory. Well, we're all in business. We all want to build what we want to reap. And like, okay, there's an automatic connection. So I will, to Janice's point, in my invites, I put, hey, we're both members of ORA. And then I'll scan and see something. I saw somebody with Minnesota roots, so I made a reference to that. So put that in there. It's not extra, it's essential. And
Mhm.
one way you can do this is, if you don't have this already, create a Word doc of some typical like introductions that you can then customize. You don't have to reinvent this every single time. And short is better, Janice, isn't it, to start with?
Yes, because as I said, sometimes they don't even read the invitation connection. They just accept it, which I don't recommend, but that's what people do. So when they do, then you see their new connection in your notifications. It says so-and-so is a new connection. Now the work starts. Now you start the conversation.
Okay, so say that's happened. Ashley reaches out to Janice, says, Janice, let's connect. Janice, you get the request and you reply.
Well, I don't reply right away. I go and look at her profile first.
Okay. Now, what are you looking for? Give us like 3 really important nuggets to your profile.
So what I'm looking for is the first impression. And the first impression for me is the background, the headshot, and the headline. Is it professional looking? Does it speak to what it says that she does? Okay. Does it paint a professional picture? Because there's a lot of people, in fact, somebody said this to me earlier this morning. I just had the default banner there because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. Like, she was new to LinkedIn, obviously, because you want to personalize it. You want to use the space that's given to you to speak to who you are and what you do. So first impression. And then I look, now if she's reaching out to me, that my guess is that she's active on LinkedIn. So I would look at a few things below that. I would look to see how her profile is set up, because that's what I do. And I would also look to see if she has activity. So there's a piece on LinkedIn that says activity. And if you are active regularly on LinkedIn, it will show your recent activity. And if you're not, it will say something like, you know, no activity from the last 90 days or something. So that's not very active. So that's one thing. And then I also look down further to see if they have any recommendations, any social proof of what they do, because you need to have current recommendations. And it's very interesting that someone can have a very great profile, and I look down at the bottom and no recommendations from 2011 on, you know, so they've missed that part. They've changed jobs 3 times or changed careers, and they haven't added some current documentation from people, testimonials. They're called recommendations on LinkedIn, but something that shows that, you know, it's character building, right? And it's, yeah.
Outstanding. Okay. Again, thank you, Lori. Good to see you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. This episode will be on my YouTube channel after the fact. So if we don't catch all the notes this time, you can rewatch it and please share. So Janice, you're talking about the background, the activity, and the recommendations. Let's unpack those a little bit more. So the background is that banner. Like if I'm my own LinkedIn page right now, here's my circular picture, and then here's the banner.
Mm-hmm.
When you say professional, that's a little bit of a loaded word, but what do you mean?
Well, banner, headshot, and headline. So what do I mean by banner being professional? Well, first impression is at least have something other than the default. Okay. So it could be a beautiful scene of where you live, but that doesn't necessarily relate to what you do. So if you want to mimic your website, or you know, your logo, your tagline, your colors of your website, that's what I did, only because that worked for me. You know, some people, I've been working lately with some wealth management salespeople, and it's really interesting because they work for a big bank corporation, and the gentleman that's their director, who has sent all his people to me, he's got like an image of the city where he works and lives, and nothing about how to get hold of him or his website or anything. I think you can go that one step further. By the way, Ginger, April 22nd, 2019 is when we connected on LinkedIn. And I saw that by looking in your contact info, and it shows when we were connected. Okay.
Fun.
And then Ginger's banner on her LinkedIn page has her logo, and it has a great shot of her in action. I think are you on a plane or in a barn, or I'm not sure where that is, but it shows you in your full glory. And I'm going to say the one thing that I would change just for you is gingerjohnson.com or something. So make it like your website as opposed to, but anyway, you just look like that's you. That's perfect.
It is a plane. It's a commemorative plane. It was a
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
yeah. It was one of my live events. So that background, then make it
Wait a minute.
relevant.
Live event. What's that?
A live shush. This is a live event. It was
Yeah.
an in-person event. Okay, better language. Thank you. So, oh, you just derailed me. So,
I'm sorry.
I remember. So, like, if this chalkboard behind me is my banner, so to speak, and this is my headshot, it shifts depending on what kind of device you're on, right,
Not
Janice?
anymore. Not anymore. It used to.
Okay.
They got smart now, and they thought they were being smart at LinkedIn and changed it on the mobile devices, but they've moved it back. So it's always
Okay.
on your left now.
Okay, so pay attention to that when you're picking your image, that your head is going to block part of that image. And it's
Or
like,
even the words, Ginger. So you want to skew everything to the right if you need to, if you've got an image.
yeah,
And yes.
JanicePorter.com, really simple. Larry, if you'd put that in the chat, please do connect with her on LinkedIn and tell her that you were on the Juice
Please do.
together. She's got some terrific programs. She's got a DIY, basically. She goes deeper with other clients and so forth. So if you're interested, there's a lot more where this came from. And she's obviously, thank you for your generosity in being here. So that's the background. Any questions from anybody on the background, the banner that she's sharing about right now from anybody? Good. Okay. All right. Let's keep rolling. The activity is the posts, the articles, the blah, 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 blah. Tell us about the activity and why that's important to be active, and what does that look like?
So activity basically is your newsfeed, right? It's how often are you contributing? How often are you being visible on LinkedIn? And while you're doing that and being visible, you want to be consistently visible. So if you go to LinkedIn 3 times a week, then make sure you do something when you're on there 3 times a week that shows that you're there. So you're going to look through your news feed. So don't just be a voyeur. Comment, engage, share other people's views.
Just clicking like doesn't cut the mustard?
Well, I would say if you're on there 3 days a week, and notice I'm not saying 3 times a day, like you might be on some other platforms. You don't need to be on there 3 times a day, but if you can be and make it part of your everyday routine, be on there once a day then. But 3 days a week, of those 3 days a week, 1 day a week, at least you post something new. And then the other 2 days you respond, you engage, you share other people's things. Ginger is one of the best people for engaging on LinkedIn that I know. And she does, you are, because not only does she, because not only do you pay attention and comment, quote, engage with people's posts, but you also do the next piece, which most people don't. And this is a very, I guess, juicy place, no pun intended, for starting new connections. And that is when somebody else comments on my post, you get in and start talking to them as well. Well, this is really good because they're paying attention now. Who is this person, right? They may reach out to you, you might reach out to them, and you can start another conversation. And you already know you have me as a, or whoever it is, as a common thread. So I think that's really important. And the other piece I would mention is that as to why it's important is LinkedIn looks at what activity you're doing to decide how many people it will allow to see through the algorithms. And I don't understand that.
Really?
Your stuff, right? So you know, if you're not active, it's not going to show it to that many people. And by the way, at the bottom of your any kind of post that you make, it's going to show you the number of views that LinkedIn has given you, right? It doesn't mean they all saw it. It just means that it was there for 3 seconds before it went by. So you have to know that you want engagement happening. You want to look at that number and say, what will make this post more attractive to people if it didn't work this time? You know,
So
that
give
kind of
us, that's a fabulous bullet point all by itself.
Mhm.
What are 3 ways that you can get in there and boost your presence and boost your, like, really enrich your time and enrich the relationship development? One I want to ask you, Janice, is sharing other people's posts. Is that a really good activity to do?
Yeah, I think it is. Sometimes I decide not to share the post if they're posting an article that came from a third party, right? Like a Forbes magazine or whatever. Sometimes I'll go and read that article from there, but then I'll post it myself because I have a completely different audience to that person. But other times I will share because I want to, you know, and I want that person to see that I'm sharing their article. That's a good thing to do on that, you know, relationship piece. There was something else though that you just said. Now I've forgotten what it was.
While it comes back, another great reason to share is that you're just flat out supporting somebody. Like, I know Rob Hill, you've been
Yes,
in
exactly.
reinvention mode, and one of Rob's big sharings with the world is leadership. Well, isn't that on everybody's mind right now anyway? And so Rob's been writing some articles, like, because Rob and I have this great relationship, I want to highlight him. Every single platform we're on is not entirely about us. It's about what other people find that we give of value in their perspective. It's called the platinum rule. The platinum rule is meeting people where they're at, not treating them like we want to be treating them, meeting them where they're at. And so, you know, sharing Rob's, like, as soon as he did a 2-parter, and as soon as you put out the first one, Rob, I'm like, oh, when's the second one coming out? Because I want to share that too. And that comes around, Janice, to what you're saying is then Rob's people see, and other people who comment in Rob's world. And, you know, it's this great big cocktail party, y'all. And it's like, oh, we're all with the cool kids, which is that feeling of belonging that we all just massively crave for connecting.
So I just remembered the second or third piece that I would add to the newsfeed piece. And it's something to be careful of. And that is because it can help or hinder your the algorithm for you. So LinkedIn does not like it if you send people off LinkedIn. Okay, so if you have even with your sign up for the course, okay, so I don't know if you saw the difference, but when you did it, and yes, it was on the not your course, your the juice, okay, yes, so you had it on the image, and that's fine where to go, but that wasn't a link, right? You had to actually do it. So you put the link in the note in the post, and LinkedIn changes that link. I don't know if you noticed, but it changes it to a LinkedIn link. Okay, so they're hiding the true link because they don't want you to go off LinkedIn, but you're going to if you press that link. So what I did when I posted it is I took the link and put it in the comments below, because that isn't part of the algorithm. And so I say, you know, go sign up here, and I put the link in there.
And do you think enough people will follow that? Do you then say?
Well, I said it in the top. I said, you know, to sign up, or the sign up is in the comments below.
So that LinkedIn is okay, and LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they're okay with putting it in the comments. That's okay with the logarithm. That's not a negative.
Well, I don't think they see it as the same as if they see it in the post.
because they want all.
I have no proof of that, so I
Okay,
don't know.
they
but-
want native. Well, you've been doing this a while, Jen. I'm pretty sure your intuition's pretty darn dialed in. So, okay, so there's the activity. Any other tidbits on activity that you find are like super great and then don't do?
Well, the one thing that comes to mind is if you're going to like something, go the extra step and comment, because then you're engaging better. Okay. And you want to be noticed. But I'll tell you one other really sort of far out thing that I don't know whether any of you do this, but there's a thing at the bottom of your profile called interests.
Mhm.
Okay, so interests is if you click the see all button at the bottom of someone's interest section, you see that it divides those interests into influencers you follow, groups you might be in, companies you're following, and schools that you maybe are associated with. So it separates them. Well, what I love to do is look at the influencers that you follow, for example, or maybe we went to the same university, which I could have seen higher up on the profile as well. But if I look at the influencers you follow, like I noticed the other day that somebody was following Sarah Blakely, and I love Sarah Blakely. She's the owner of Spanx, for those of you who don't, and she became one of the first women millionaires in the States. She's amazing. Billionaires, yeah, right. And she has over 1,248,000 followers. And what that says to me is if I go to her profile, now I'm a follower, right? I couldn't connect with her directly, but she makes a post and all these people that comment on it, we have a common interest already. We both love Sarah Blakely stuff. So that's where I might want to hang out to find some new people that I want to connect with.
Oh,
I
so
think
good.
I think that's so totally underutilized.
Oh, so good. Find out who the people you admire, who you follow and or are connected with, who are they interested in following part of. That's true with all platforms, definitely, especially with LinkedIn. And by the way, be fearless in reaching out to somebody who you think is untouchable. It's not true because Mel Robbins said yes to my request.
Awesome. Yes, I found that too. And by the way, Rob, I see you like Sarah Blakely.
Yeah, he was nodding his head. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, I like her posts and her message.
Yeah. So,
Right.
so
And
we already have something in common besides
Right,
Ginger.
right.
Yeah.
Always know, everybody, always know somebody's paying attention. Somebody, whoever that somebody is paying attention. And so if you're continuing to support somebody like Sarah Blakely, she's going to eventually notice that, or someone on her team, if she's not doing it, like they're going to notice.
Yeah.
That matters. So have the confidence. You matter. You're just as important as the next person. It doesn't, we all put our Spanx on one way at a time. My body's not into that, but I get that and I admire her moxie. Okay, so we got background activity. Now recommendations. Talk to us about the recommendation section, Janice. This is so good. Are you glad you're here?
Well,
Yes. Yeah, she's giving good stuff, isn't she, Agmar? Yes, absolutely.
there used to be where you would have skills and endorsements, and then you'd have recommendations. Now they're both still there, but do you remember endorsing people and saying they were good at this skill or that skill or the other? Well, it got so that people were endorsing you and they didn't even know you. So how could they endorse you, right? So endorsements kind of lost their shine, and now it's really about the skills. So the real social proof on LinkedIn comes from having recommendations. And there's really two ways. You have to be first level connected to someone to ask them for a recommendation or to give them a recommendation. But there's two ways to get recommendations. One is to ask. And when you ask, you want to make sure you personalize the note as well, so that you maybe give them a hint as to, I'd really appreciate a recommendation of the work we did together or of the project we did, or, something to share with, it depends how well you know them, of course. But sometimes when I've worked with people on their LinkedIn and I've worked with them for maybe, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours in total, I will always say at the end, would you mind if I ask you for a recommendation? Because then they're looking for it. And then I'm asking, politely, but so asking. And then the other way you can get recommendations is more oblique, and that is if you give somebody without them asking, just go and recommend somebody. The law of reciprocity works, and somewhere, somehow, it's going to come back to you. It might not be the same person, but it will come back to you.
Hmm.
And you want to make sure that you have current ones because you only see chronologically the last two that show up.
And you can choose to have it published or not published.
Yes, yes, it's all done through messaging. So when you reach out to ask for a recommendation, which you can do through the button, either if you don't have any now, you might not have that showing. So you look under the add profile section and you'll see recommendations is under, I forget right now, it's under one of the background, I think it is, I can't remember. Anyway, and then, or you can do it from your section and ask somebody for, or you can go to their profile and ask them or recommend them. So it goes through messaging and there's a link. And that link, they click on that link and they write the recommendation and they send it back to you. It goes through messaging. You click on the return link and you approve or send it back. You can't make any changes, but if they have 3 typos in it that they'll hate if they have it in there for posterity, you might want to go and ask them to fix it before you post it, but that's your choice.
And then you can specifically ask them at that time, Janice, right? Like, hey, I happy fingers, or you must be so excited about this that I noticed a couple of typos. Do you want to fix that before it gets published?
Exactly.
Yeah. So challenge to everybody who's here on the Juice, if you're live or if you are watching this in recording, recommend at least one person this week authentically. Point to one piece of their work that they have, that you've done together. There's all kinds of categories you can choose from. Like I could pick Ashley Keene. Ashley was the one who filmed a keynote that was delivered on Monday for a conference we were part of.
Nice.
And I'm super grateful for her mad skills in helping me do what I want. So I'm going to be really specific. Ashley is a professional who shows up. She guided me through the process. She helped me really make the best work I could make. If you're looking for an XYZ, I recommend Ashley. Keep it short and simple and be specific.
Yes, and I'll add one more thing to that. Know that if you then put that recommendation and Ashley accepts it, of course, and puts it on her profile, guess what? Your name and your headline are right there on her profile for as long as it takes until somebody bumps you down the list, right? So you get more visibility in different places on LinkedIn.
Right. Let's touch on headline for 2.5 minutes. And then I think that there's some questions in the room if they're not in the chat already. And of course, put any of your questions in the chat, even if we don't get to them today, which will stay till the last question's answered today. I got till the top of the hour. The show technically goes till for another 5 minutes, but you can stay or go as you need to. So Janice, headline, tell us what that is and tell us how to think about creating an effective headline.
Well, everybody has their own take on it. Different people, different.
We're asking you. Oh, Janice.
Yeah, I know. And your headline is the piece directly under your name. Just in the early part of last year, LinkedIn upped the number of characters you can have in there. So some of you may still have the old version, which was 120 characters, and that includes spaces and symbols and everything. Now it's 220.
Whoa.
So I do recommend that you take advantage of as many characters as you can. I always do it on a Word document so I can count them right away. And what I do is I look for keywords that will that are usually searchable. So, and I call them like egoic labels. They're people words, because on LinkedIn, people search for people more than they search for things. So like you're an accountant as opposed to accounting, right?
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So, I actually have Rob's up here, if I may talk to it. Rob, would you be okay with that?
Be nice.
I will be nice, because he just reached out to me and to connect. So I just happened to see that.
So give me your straight feedback. Thank you.
No. Well, no, I'm not going to go into everything here, but I will say that you've taken advantage of the space and you have, and Rob says people and team builder. thought leader, business and relationship builder. See, when I see that relationship word, I know that we bonded already. Yes. And he's saying strategy developer, growth generator. And those are all people words. Now, what he might want to do, Rob, what you might want to do is look at is there anything there that I might tweak, because do people search for some of those things, right? And maybe tweak it something else. And one other thing you might look at is what I like to encourage my business owners and sales professionals to do to maybe stand out from the crowd a little bit is what benefit statement or what positioning statement can you add that speaks to you and just you, your uniqueness. So it might be, and it's usually an active verb, like, and I'll just use the simplistic one, helping or supporting so-and-so or guiding people, blah, blah, blah. But it's something that speaks to their audience, or it might be their tagline, if their tagline is, really closely associated with them. I just did one this morning. And what did we say? We said, she's in the health in business, but what she said was, okay, holistic health coach and guide, integrative health practitioner, all natural healing solutions. We cheated there a little bit. Podcaster. So if you're in that world, you want to add that. Speaker and educator, supporting you on your guided health journey. And then what she says all the time, health is your true wealth. So she's really got a lot of things there. And a lot of those things are, people search for.
Nice. How do we figure out what people are searching for, Janice?
That's a good question. What I do, actually, I usually do the reverse. If I look at, let's say in this case, health practitioner, just for argument's sake, I'll search health practitioner on LinkedIn, but I put them together with quotation marks, so they both have to be there, and see what people that have that title or that they're in that field are saying. Or here's another one that's just classic, realtor or mortgage broker, right? So 9 times out of 10, you'll see